Hey there moms, and welcome back to the Mom Desk Club. Today is episode 3 of our balancing act tips for managing motherhood and a home-based career. And today for episode 3, I thought it would be fun to talk about time blocking techniques for maximum productivity. Now, before we get into this, I kind of feel like the whole maximum productivity thing is kind of a joke. There is a certain element of productivity where you can be incredibly productive and still feel like you didn't get anything done. You know what I'm talking about. That moment where you get to the end of the day and you're like, I don't think I did a single thing today. I feel house is still a disaster. Everything looks like a mess. Everything's crazy. And then if you start really thinking about the things you did that day, it's almost mind-blowing. Most people would have no clue what you're talking about and they would be exhausted just listening to you. So before you start getting all up in this whole maximum productivity situation, I think we should all just set this baseline that being a work-at-home mom requires so much work and so much productivity, and at some point there's just only so much you can do to maximize it because there's already so much going on. That being said, there are a few things you can do to help streamline your processes a little bit and hopefully maybe remove a few things that are hindering you from potential. And I don't even think that that's quite the right word. I think I may be just saying hindering you as in maybe things that are holding you back. There are always going to be certain habits and things you do and techniques that you use that aren't as practical. One tweak, and you can actually make a huge difference in some part of your schedule. So today we're just going to go ahead and dive into the topic, and I hope that you are able to pick something up out of this, especially if you aren't a work-at-home mom yet. Maybe you want to be a work-at-home mom, but you have not gotten to that point yet in your life, or maybe you just haven't figured out how to even get to that spot. You've got kids and you're working a 9-to-5 and you don't know how to even transition into that work-at-home thing. Maybe you just started working from home and it feels so foreign and you just wish you had people around you, or maybe you have been working from home for a really long time like I have. I've been working from home since 2016. I have almost 5 kids. I'll have another one in a couple months. I wouldn't necessarily call myself experienced, but I've been doing it long enough that I could at least share some things with people who are just now coming along. So thank you for joining us today here at the Mom Desk Club. Hopefully you're a one-stop shop for all things work-at-home mom support and community. So let's jump right in today to talk about time blocking for maximum productivity. So this whole concept of time blocking is new to me. I only just stumbled on it recently when I was listening to a podcast with Gillian Perkins and Lisa Bass with Farmhouse on Boone. It was really interesting because I had heard about like rhythms. Have you ever heard about people talking about rhythms where they'll be like, yeah, we don't have a routine and we don't have an exact schedule, but we have daily rhythms and we kind of just do the same thing throughout the day. I'm like, oh, that's probably me, because I never thought that I was really a routine-oriented person so much. But time blocking, that's even better. I really like this concept where you kind of just have the same types of strategies throughout the day. You block them up into sections. So maybe you've got your breakfast time block, and maybe during breakfast you're getting dressed and you're getting people's hair done and brushing teeth, and maybe that involves cleaning up the kitchen after breakfast. There's kind of like just this time block for breakfast. And then your next time block could be, this is where I'm going to get a couple of hours of work in while the kids go and play with some toys, or the older ones are going to self-initiate their school sessions, or maybe they're all at school. Maybe that's part of your time block is breakfast and getting everybody out the door and getting them all to school. Just kind of arranging your day in that kind of a time block mentality is actually a really interesting way to kind of stay focused on a specific type of object or a type of thing. It kind of gives you a little bit of direction for the rest of your day. So the first part of time blocking that can be really helpful is to identify your priorities. What do you have to accomplish in your day in order to make it the most productive? Obviously, you've got to feed people. You have to keep your home running, so you've got some chores and tasks that you either have to do or you have to delegate to other people, or you're going to have, in my case, we're homeschooling our children, so you've got to figure out a way to get school squeezed into that. We also have a farm, so I'm managing chore things, farm things. That kind of has to have a time block in there somewhere. And then of course you got work, because if you're a work-at-home mom, you've got to squeeze in hours for that. Every work-at-home mom is going to have a different type of schedule she needs to keep based on the job that she's working from home. And there's a whole variety of different work-at-home jobs. I'm sure we will go into that in the future at some point. But for now, just take some time to make a list about your priorities and see if you can kind of label down exactly what you need to do in a day, not the crazy excessive things like organizing the closets. That will fit in later. But just your basic, like, if this is all I get done today, then this will be a productive day and everything will continue running smoothly. That's my first tip. Take a little bit of time to just identify your priorities. Okay, so the second tip for time blocking for maximum productivity is to create a schedule that aligns with your already natural rhythm. So you've got people who are morning people, you've got people who are nighttime people, some night owls out there. I have worn many different hats through the seasons. So sometimes I don't do mornings, sometimes I do mornings, sometimes I wake up really early. Right now I'll wake up really early, but then I schedule some time around 8 a.m. like sit down and maybe take a quick nap. Because I start my morning so early, by the time I hit 8 a.m. I am just not functioning human. Like if I needed to sit down and try to do anything that required brain power at 8 a.m., I would not be able to do it. Being said, if I'm able to get enough rest throughout the day and schedule in some quiet time, I actually tend to really rev up sometimes around 9 and 10 o'clock. That's what I kind of mean when I'm saying paying attention to your natural rhythms. If you're really good at cracking through things first thing in the morning, then maybe on your time blocking schedule, that's where you should put the things that really require a lot of mental agility from you. Maybe it's going to be dealing with finances in your business or even in your personal life. And depending on what your business is, at one point I was doing content creation for another company, another marketing company. And so sometimes I would have to set aside time during my peak mental hours to crank out blogs and posts and crank out as much as I could. I didn't even focus on correctness. I would just write at lightning speed so I could get it all out first. And then later in the afternoon when I, was feeling more sluggish, that's when I would take time to actually go through the content and correct it and tweak it and find photos and that kind of thing. So pay attention to your own natural rhythms as you're thinking about this time blocking thing, but also pay attention to your family's natural rhythms, because it's not going to do you any good if your natural rhythm is, at 9 a.m. to sit down and crank out some really important documents, if at 9 a.m. that's also when you have to take your children to regular appointments. Maybe they've got piano lessons, or maybe that's the time of day when all of your kids start asking for their first snack, and so that's not going to help you any to sit down and want to mentally get into something and then have everybody come and ring at you because they're hungry. So pay attention to your family's natural rhythms as well. Try to work within those, because that's going to really help you as you're time blocking for everyone's natural rhythms. I find it really interesting as you're researching time blocking and things geared towards work at home moms. The next tip would technically be to designate specific time blocks for work and for family. My work at home journey does not look anything like that. Like if I tried to tell my children that from 9 to 11 a.m. I am going to be working and you may not interrupt me, that would be a great idea in theory, but they're not gonna leave me alone for 2 whole hours. The best I can get as far as designating time blocks where I'm going to get some really solid time to work is going to be during nap time. And even then, out of my 4 kids, only 3 of them take naps. So I've still got one that is hiding over there in the corner playing with toys and activities. The other ones are asleep. And so that's kind of just how you're going to have to figure out in your time blocking is what's going to actually work for work and for family. That being said, there are a lot of work-at-home moms that I know of that are working for larger corporations, and they still technically have a 9-to-5 job while they're working from home. There might be some stronger stipulations on their work schedule and what they're allowed to do and not do. So in that case, 9 to 5, that is your time block for work. And hopefully you have a solution and a strategy for how to have your kids taken care of while you're working. And there's a lot of different solutions, but hopefully you have a solution so that you're not being torn between trying to work for your boss and also work for your children, who are basically bosses as well. But I think as a general rule, it is a great idea to try to find designated time blocks for your work and designated time blocks for your family. I just think sometimes as a work-at-home mom, it's not nearly that cut and dry, not nearly that black and white. And sometimes you have to really be willing to be flexible and roll with the punches, because there's a lot of punching. And that brings me to the next tip, which is to embrace flexibility within the time blocks. Time blocks are not meant to be this strict, rigid, hardcore thing. They are meant to provide some structure and some stability to your day so that you kind of know what you're supposed to be doing during different times of the day, but also so that you can have some flexibility within that. My husband and I, we talk about different ways that we are training and raising our kids, and kind of one of the philosophies that we had is that you want to give our children this frame. Here are your boundaries. Here are the things that we're expecting out of you. It's not super complicated. There's not a lot of rules. It's not really rigid. That being said, within the frame, there is a ton of freedom. So if you're going to think of time blocking in that way, time blocking is that frame. It's going to block you in, but there's a bunch of freedom within the frame. So you can kind of rearrange things as you will within the time blocking thing within the frame, but there's still a lot of freedom within that. And so it's always good as a work-at-home mom to remember that flexibility is key, because you have no clue what is coming around the corner at you next. Okay, and my last tip is to remember to take short breaks and take time to take care of yourself. I don't really care for the whole self-care movement that people tend to get really obsessed about. I feel like it's super self-focused. In a day and age where actually being focused on yourself is not that difficult. It's actually pretty easy. I know everybody's all like, as a mom, I'm never focused on myself. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can see that. I understand that completely. I've got a whole bunch of people around me that are constantly requiring my attention. But I think sometimes when we get stuck on these self-care mantras, we're not really doing things that are feeding and fueling our body. It's just kind of like picking it off the box of the Pinterest self-care movement. That being said, I think it is incredibly important to keep in mind as a work-at-home mom that you are human. You're very human, which means that you have all of the same basic needs that every other human on the earth has. You need some sleep, you need some food, you need some water, okay? Those are your things. You need to be able to go to the bathroom. Basic human needs. As part of being a work-at-home mom, I think it can be really easy to forget those basic needs. You're so used to being this superhuman that you forget some of those things, and then the train comes off the rails and everything starts to get really, really challenging and difficult. So as you are planning this time blocking, try to think of times when you can schedule in times of rest. I, for one, don't get a ton of sleep right now. Between a lot of different kids, sometimes they sleep great, sometimes they don't. There's that. We have a lot of projects and things going at the same time right now, and some days I can get to bed at 10 o'clock and it's great, and other days I'm up till 12 o'clock making cheese and sending out last minute emails, writing blogs, and all that different kind of stuff. Every day is different, but if you can try to find ways, especially if you know, like, okay, this is going to be a late night, I can't avoid this, I'm going to have to stay up and get my work done. So tomorrow I am not going to plan for it to be this big, crazy, highly productive, insanely accomplished day. Tomorrow we are going to plan a really basic breakfast. We're going to either keep certain things set aside in the freezer that you can just pull out and warm up, or maybe that would be cereal morning and a basic breakfast, because you know that you're going to need to have just a little bit of calm down. If you're like me and you wake up super early and you know that by 8 a.m. you're going to crash, that would be a great time to plan time to crash. So I'll pull out the audiobooks that I know my kids like, I'll print off a bunch of coloring pages for them, plan a time when they can actually sit down and be quiet and rest and relax, so that I can be quiet and rest and relax and catch a couple minutes of sleep before being rushed off into the next portion of the day. Or I've also found in the afternoon that can be really great too, as kids are waking up from their naps. That's a fantastic time. Grab everybody, sit down on the couch, cuddle up. They're generally still really cuddly anyway. They've just woke up and they're all sleepy and warm and they don't really want to move. So it's a great time to just sit on the couch, and sometimes maybe you can only catch 30 minutes, but most of the time 30 minutes is all you need to really kind of jumpstart the rest of your evening and the rest of your afternoon. Aside from the nap thing, which is a really big deal to me right now, keep in mind that you also need to be drinking plenty of water and just eating regular meals, high protein meals, not just carb, sugar stuff. It's just not going to help you at all. Try to come up with really good high protein foods and snacks that you can grab really quickly and easily if you're having trouble with that, and work that kind of stuff into your time blocking. Work time in to sit down and eat with your kids, because if you sit down and eat with them, you're going to have some more energy to go through the rest of your day. And if you're blocking in time for some quiet time and some sitting down and relaxing and napping, you're going to be more apt to take that time. So this is my permission as a human being to do the things you need to do to keep your body running, and anything after that is above and beyond. If you're wanting to go have a spa day, or even just squeeze in some extra devotions or reading a book, whatever you use as your self-care per se, it's okay to squeeze those things in. I promise. The world will not fall apart just because you take 10 minutes to take care of yourself. And there you have it. There are 5 tips for time blocking for maximum productivity, which, as we've kind of already talked about, you're going to be productive no matter what. But there's a few things that you could do to kind of help you along. I think one last thing would be to just kind of figure out where your pitfalls are and where your distractions are when it comes to productivity. What are you getting stuck on? What are you getting hung up on? A lot of times for me, that would be social media. So I have different apps that turn the site off after a specific amount of time, or after I've been on it for so long, or even maybe during certain times of the day where you're going to be more prone to sitting and scrolling. Maybe turn it off for those time periods. That way you aren't just spending all of your time scrolling on Facebook. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I am saying I generally don't feel super great about myself after I finish it, and I had wished I had just been productive instead and done something actually important than just sitting and scrolling. So if you have tips about time blocking, I really hope you share them in the comments. I would love to hear about it. If you are a new mom, a new work-at-home mom, and you're trying to figure out how to manage this whole work-at-home life, feel free to drop your comments and questions down in the comment section. I would love to read them, and this is a community. I want us to be able to form relationships in here and get to know each other, because being work-at-home mom can be kind of isolating sometimes, or at the very least, you just don't even know where to find find friends. So this can be your place. The Mom Desk Club can be your place to find your friends. So until next time, I hope that you have a really great work week, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. Okay, before you leave though, I do want to remind you that next week we are going to talk about effective goal setting for work at home moms. So that should be really fun, be really helpful, and I really hope to see you next time.